Hi guys, this is the newest episode with the House of H, and he is a wonderful spiritual healer and practitioner who I have known for a while named Juno, and this is my newest episode. I hope you guys enjoy it.
My part of my channels is definitely recording real life as it happens. So it's sort of giving almost a behind and in front of the scenes view of like what people go through on a daily basis. So it's somewhat like an idiot, like introducing the idiosyncrasies into life. So people have more of a relatable view um, to someone who they're going to be listening to or who connecting to when they're viewing somebody's podcast. So for me, it's very valuable for people to see what it is to be us, you know.
Yeah. Well, also just the fact that, when you say us, I don't know exactly how you define that for yourself, but for me, when I think
Meaning you
about,
and me, or meaning the person running the channel,
yeah, but I mean, I'm thinking about how important queer stories are right now and just
right?
voices of people that are othered and just in general. So it's actually really funny you say that because I just got off the phone prior. Do you remember when I was like, I have a phone call, I'll be available at 2?
Yeah, right.
I was just on the phone with one of my yoga teachers, and he's incredible, and he teaches Kemetic yoga, which is like Egyptian style yoga. It predates what we currently know yoga to be. And I was like, listen, I'm having this retreat in 2026. It's called Rooted in Reverence, and I think I really want somebody who lives it and not just I think it would be more authentic to be educated from somebody that it's their everyday instead of me who understands it academically and I use it in my own way, but it's not necessarily the way that it was used traditionally. So yeah. So I get it. I get the need to have voices present. Absolutely.
And relatability too, like people are able to relate to this said sharer or someone who's sharing or creator or artist or expressionist, somebody who has a voice and who's using their voice. I feel like that's so important to reach out because you don't have to be perfect in order for someone to be helped by your message.
Yeah. I mean, I think ultimately, as long as we're moving forward from a place of love, that's what matters. I
And
think that,
that's what people resonate with. Yeah, I agree.
yeah, because I think that ultimately that's the truest form of expression. That is the one language that unifies all of us. As Miss America as that sounds, which I always joke and say sometimes I say this stuff and I feel so like $10 at a beauty contest like I'm playing Monopoly. It's just I feel silly saying some of the things I say sometimes, but it's true.
I've
But
sort of it's funny you say that because I've just finally kind of got the vocabulary to describe what love means. I kind of find like it's a unified language and it's a universal language, and the language is accessed through our nervous system. So it's something we're all able to understand in our neurological existentiality. So our actual neurons, and we can
yeah.
actually feel we can feel the communications through our neural networks, and those networks spread throughout the universe, not just ourselves. So me and you also have the same neural network, just like the trees have the same neural network, not neural networks, but electrical communications through their roots and through their trunks. So
Yeah.
it's it's not the
Well,
same neurology as far as anatomy goes, but it's the same neurological communications because it's the same electricity, it's the same source.
yeah.
Um,
Well, everything has some form of an electromagnetic pull to it. And that's
yeah,
when for example, have you ever met somebody and you just know that they are not the vibe even before they speak? Like that is your electromagnetic field saying this is not a match. Like, or vice
Energy,
versa.
energy doesn't lie for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like when I like that's funny how you say that. It's like we haven't really talked about this before, but yet we came up with the same conclusions, which really just shows that we're both feeling probably the same or feeling into the same things. Because when I'm feeling like, for example, somebody's energy field in front of me, I'm feeling like um what what I know that is going to happen. I know what the nature of the relationships are going to be with them. I know the nature of the conversations I'm going to have with them. I know perhaps what they're going to ask or how they're going to speak. So it's like I don't even have to like for example, I don't even have to open a message like on my Facebook Marketplace. I know who's being disrespectful and I know who's just honestly wanting my product because they see what I put into it.
Oh,
Um,
what do you sell on Facebook Marketplace?
I my Facebook Marketplace is called Dragonwears, and it's all 100% handmade items with 100% um, sustainable materials that they're made from. And um, my message is basically pay a little more for something that wasn't made from slave labor from a foreign country, wasn't made in this country from people who work long hours and then go home and then get paid peanuts. And it's a message of sustainability and a positive message for sustainability in terms of
So,
what
what type
we,
of
and
things?
sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. I was excited. What type of stuff does Dragonware make? Like, is it like clothing? Is it like body care products?
So it's like jewelry, and wearable art. So if it comes in the form of clothing, like I'm selling socks right now, for example, and it's not based upon my time, which I feel is kind of like a slavery type vibe, but based upon the inspiration that I see in the product. It's it's like I feel compelled to like say it's rare or it's uncommon. Like you know how in like the role playing games, like you find
Yes.
items and it's uncommon, rare. That's how
Yeah.
I
Mythic,
my
rare, legendary. Yes.
right. So that's how I price my items.
I love that.
Um, so I just find the inspiration in them, and that's how I sell them. But it's really promoting sustainable products and sustainable consumerism, if that even exists.
It doesn't
But
exist under capitalism, but it does exist.
right, so it's like something I enjoy, something I'm going to price because I'm enjoying it. Just because it's somewhat like a game, and it's fun, and it's somewhat like promoting you know, healthy consumerism because I'm taking items that would have normally been thrown away and I'm making them into a product which I'm really happy about. So,
I love that.
and
Do your articles have like a do you have like an Instagram for them or something? Or do you have like a website?
I do my Instagram, my threads, my YouTube and my Facebook are all connected. So all the links are in my profile description.
Cool. Very cool.
So I'm all about as an artist, expressionist, which whatever you want to call me, I'm very adaptable, let's just say. But um I'm a surrealist by nature. So I feel like this is a surreal place. It's a very sacred, divine place, and I feel like everything in it is supposed to literally be making you believe like you're dreaming.
You're talking about
And
Earth.
Earth, anything on Earth, people, the way people interact. I think it's a very sad culture we live in where
Well, you know what the
we
problem is, right? Or not that it's a problem, but you know what I guess the obstacle that many people face is that they think that they are their bodies. Like we're not our bodies, but many people have given into that like forgetfulness that like we are more than our bodies. And I think that a lot of people get lost in that.
Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Oh yeah, of course. So like it is my belief that like uh I have to be a little esoteric for this. I have to kind of go back to the beginning of creation. So you know how like with all creation myths, no matter which one you look at, pretty much there's a time of like no thingness, and then there is some form of divinity that comes out of that nothingness, and then that then form of divinity decides to create or like create from nothingness. So like if if a divinity has created itself, right? And then there can't be nothing because now there is something. So, what did that god or deity or whatever create from? What did it have to create from? Itself. Like it could only create out of its divine essence. So like everyone talks about the soul and stuff like that. So I think that our soul is like all this meat suit is just something that a spark of divinity, like that doesn't even belong to us. It belongs to like God, whatever God you believe in. It basically sits in this human form and attempts to experience reality from all these different perspectives. But a lot of people think that this meat suit is who they are, but really the spirit that is within them, that spark of life, is who they are. And if you've ever been with somebody, I don't know if you have or haven't, both like the privilege and the sadness of like being with somebody as they passed, you can see in their eyes the transition happen. You can see when the divine leaves. You can see it. So, like, that sounds a little bit dark, but it's so true. So I
So
think like we are just divine sparks attempting to understand this existence.
I'm listening. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. And I sort of um see things from a different angle than you do.
Okay.
Um, Only because I have had my own experiences, which I'm more than willing to share with you if you're interested.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I've had memories from before I was born. I was a part of these people called the light people, and they were two-dimensional and they were made of light. And um, apparently, this demon came along and said, you know, you don't have to be like God. You don't have to do everything he said you should do. So they all went nuts and they were like doing all kinds of things because they were free. They didn't have to do what they felt they were anymore. They could do whatever they wanted. So I kind of I kind of feel like um that's the same energy that sort of exists in the world today. So I ran away from this event. I ran away from these people because they were nuts. They weren't themselves anymore. I didn't want anything to do with it. And I ran to the farthest darkness in the universe that I knew of at the time, which we currently live in, actually. They measured it in science that we're in right now, the darkest or farthest reaches of the universe in our galaxy that we currently live in. So I feel like this is really near where the Big Bang of this universe actually happened, is where we live. Because it's the biggest hole of star systems and galaxies that is in the knowable universe, but neither here nor there. Um, so I feel like I hid in this dark place for, I would say, three-fourths of the time of the universe existed. And I remember all this. This is still in my memory banks. And then this is like pre-birth. And then I remember just my consciousness, because I was like not existing at all, bumped into the earth. And then I was like, oh, and then I seen this two-dimensional disc, and it was like blue and green and like white. And then it turned three-dimensional, and she had a face, and she welcomed me. She was this wonderfully beautiful woman. I could just see this face, and she was just smiling and welcoming me in. And then, you know, all kinds of spirits. I just started to see these spirits that were just floating around the planet. And then I ended up like flying down towards New England. And it was like the 1600s. It was like a timeless era where there was no buildings, there was no cars, there was nothing. It was just woods and beautiful trees in the fall seasons and changing. And then I just seen these little shacks appearing here and there with like smoke bellowing from their chimneys. And then ended up just like flashing through time again. And then I ended up going to my mother, which she was surrounded by this dark energy. And I ended up not knowing it was my mother at first, but then I ended up sort of witnessing her in this dark field, and she was this big light. So I ended up wanting to help her. So in helping her, I gave her my life force to help her. But instead, I ended up becoming born by her.
Yes. Yeah, and you were like, this is not what I intended.
Not what I intended at all. Um, so I ended up remembering all of this because I never trusted in creation, especially after that event that happened so long ago. So I ended up making it a point to remember everything. And ironically enough, I have very bad short-term memory loss, where I'm not really able to function that well on a daily basis. Like, where did I put that? I don't know. I have no idea. Like, disappears. Then I find it like months later. But not to get sidetracked.
I always say when things like that happen that like, oh, the Fae moved them, like that type of thing. Because
Yeah, I'd say that too.
yeah, I have a very I'm very closely tied to the elements, and I'm not sure if that's because I'm like a witch or whatever. But yeah, whenever I uh something just goes like missing and I know it was there, when I'm like, I know I put my keys right here, or I'm like, I know that I put my lip balm right here. Like, and then it's just not there. I'm like, it was the Fae. It's always the Fae. But they're cool to have around. I like them. A lot of people feel very mixed about them, but I think I probably hold some of that essence in me, which is why they're always around me.
You know,
Um,
I get very angry with them. I get really angry about like when things get misplaced. I'm like, there's a demon in my life. I get really crazy. But but I'm like, at the same time, they're doing it for a reason, and it actually does. It ends up bringing me to a good place or a better state than I would have been in if they didn't do that. Like I would have been distracted, perhaps in a wrongful way.
one of my favorite happenings with them is when I got my Reiki certification recently. I have a few Reiki certifications, but when I went to get my very first Dragon Reiki certification, like a bit over a year ago, maybe 2 years ago now, I don't know. Um, the teacher, she was like, I don't know what happened, but like as soon as you agreed to do this, like things in my house just started to move around, just like moving and like shifting in my house. And I was like, "Oh yeah." I was like, I'm sorry." I was like, that's just the Fae. And she was like, "Had I only known, had I only known."
Ironically enough, I used to work with fairies, so that's probably what why it happens. Like the fairies are probably still like around and just communicating with me. I'm just and I haven't worked with them in a while
They
officially.
never go away, ever.
They never go away, so that makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense.
Once you open that door to them, they're like there for good. So there are very few entities that I've worked with that I found are as present as they are because they're like ever present. At least in my experience with them. Uh, I actually had this experience that happened like a week ago, maybe, or a week and a half ago. And I'm not sure if it was a fae or if it was a spirit, but like whenever, um, whenever lights flicker, I always take it as like a sign or something's talking to me or whatever. And so there are times where I'll walk into a room and like, no joke, lights will be on. I'll walk into the room and all of the lights will just be like poof, like they'll just shut off. And I'm like, "Hi guys, yes, okay, can we turn the lights back on?" And I'll like flip them and they'll go back on. But it's just wild. Like the weirdest things happen. So I was cleaning my bathroom. It was during Imbolg, so it was like a week and change ago. Um, and I was in my bathroom, and one of my side vanity lights started to flicker, which never happens. Like those lights are always solid. And I was just like, okay, I'm gonna talk to whatever this is. And I was like, because I couldn't tell if it was a fae or if it was a like a person that had passed, but it was definitely like attempting to communicate. And so I was like, listen, this is my goal. I know that they say you should speak to your angels when you get signs from them. So like my goal is to sell out these retreats. My goal is to like help affect change in the world and make it a better place for all people. And like it was blinking as I was talking to it, and then it turned off completely. And I didn't know what that meant. And so I was like, okay, well, I don't know what that means, but I can say, if you try, I'll try. And then when I said that, the filament in the bulb, it was like I heard it vibrating like aggressively, like bzzz. And then all of a sudden the bulb started to smoke. And I was like, well, you're clearly trying, so we're on the same page. We're working together. And like that type of weird stuff happens to me. Well, not weird, but that type of stuff happens to me all the time. All
I
the time.
have stories among stories among stories. Like, because I used to do, I haven't done ritual in a long time.
Hmm. Why?
I, I grew up as a witch, and I'll get to that. But I grew up as a witch, protecting my parents from their friends, and they didn't like that I was a witch because their friends were witches, but they didn't care about that. They cared that I was a witch, though. So, they had dark witches for friends, and I had to protect them, like my mother especially, against this jealous dark witch that, my father used to always go around. But um, one of the stories was this dark witch gave my mother a strawberry plant, and one of the leaves turned basically like she took one of the strawberries and she started bleeding from her vagina uncontrollably and had to go to the hospital. They didn't know what was wrong with her. And I seen one of the leaves, or not one of the leaves. I was looking at one of the leaves. It's like my PTSD talking. All of the leaves were like turning like these little blood stains on the petals, these little like red splotches all of a sudden after she took the strawberry. So I took three white stones and I just started pouring light into this plant. And then eventually, when I felt satisfied, I took the stones away and it was fine. She came home. They didn't know what was wrong with her. She was fine. And then this witch started to get this weird skin disease, this very rare skin condition after. So ever since then, I was doing ritual for like I would say 10 years, and then I met my ex who's Jewish. So I sort of strayed because I'm like, wow, I got all these signs from God. I asked God, what's my symbol, for instance, and I started to draw a triangle up and a triangle down on top of itself, and it was the Star of David, for instance. Um,
Well, you know that
Another,
that's also the seal of Solomon if you study some more esoteric
which
stuff.
I actually do feel called to Solomon a lot, and
Yeah.
especially Solomon's temple. It's just like it feels like the temple that was built correctly. Um, it just felt resonant. It just felt like it was supposed to be that way. To me, it feels like the other temples had somewhat like a very logical vibe around them. Like they just felt a little bit more removed from
Okay.
spirit. Um, Solomon's temple definitely felt like it was um, divine in a way that the other ones didn't. The first temple,
I mean,
but
I'm not familiar, even though my undergraduate is in art history and sculpture, I have not I've not studied architecture nearly enough to make an intelligent conversation piece around that. So I will trust your lead there.
it's just a feeling I get, and I go upon feeling. I don't go upon what I see in books. I don't go upon what I see in the world. I don't go upon what I hear from people. I go upon what I feel is true. Um, and I feel like a lot of that information obviously is missing, and conveniently so. I think there's a lot, there's a world shift away from the divine aspects of our experience and into a very logical, conclusive, removed, detached, distrustful relationship.
I think
Um,
it's a mix of things, actually. Like I like to read. I like to do the academic stuff. Like that is a fun brain exercise for me. Um, and then I like to see like, well, whatever I read, does it resonate with me? And then if it does resonate with me, then I take it and I'm like, okay, this feels good. But if it does not resonate with me, then I'm like, I'll take the parts of this that feel true and I'll leave the rest. That's kind of like my approach to life.
yeah, exactly. And I haven't, I didn't say I didn't like read books or anything. Like when I first did witchcraft, um, I felt like I had to read a little bit into it, in order to get some sense of what I was doing or what I was being. And I would go to the woods and I would like this one time I had this one ritual and I really should get back into ritual. I've just sort of like shamed myself out of it. Like I sort of was like, well, I got into a deeper connection in my Jewish um adventures and endeavors spiritually and I sort of detached from my journey as a witch, and I really shouldn't have done that. I think I should have honestly continued ritual, and I probably will at some point when I feel resonant to do so.
I know you said you're not like big into the academic component of it, though you have like read and stuff before for like study. I'm just gonna
Hmm.
recommend a book to you because it's like literally right next to my desk. I'm
Of
gonna
course.
put this back down 1 second. The Golden Dawn by Israel Regardie. This is the seventh edition. It's the easiest one to read and understand, in my opinion. Avoid the third edition. But uh, this delves into Jewish mysticism, like Kabbalah and stuff like that, and it draws a lot of lines with correspondences in nature and stuff like that. And this was written in like I think 1908 or something. I forget the year, but it is a solid uh read and it's great just because it draws a bunch of lines that then for me after I read through this and like pulled things out that really resonated for me, I just saw so many other connections happening that I was like, everyone should read this. Everyone should read this, and everyone should do kinetic yoga, in my opinion, because
It,
they
it's
it just draws so many parallels.
right. I mean, that's so helpful, especially when I read. If I do read, I really don't read. I didn't lie. I just lied. Um, I don't really read, but when I used to, I did definitely get a lot of resonant connections. I'm a YouTuber now, so I watch like, card readings and tarot. This is one tarot reader that I follow, and there's no one else that I follow. Her name is Andy. She has her own channel called The 13 Moon.
I'm very familiar with her, yes.
She's wonderful. I'd be like totally like befriend her in an instant, but
I haven't really said anything to anyone about this yet, but because I do love her vibe, I actually was planning on reaching out to her to facilitate at one of my retreats in the future.
wonderful. Yeah. She's just absolutely fabulous. Um, she's just all of her information is spot on. She's on point. She's resonant. She's listening to spirit. She's listening to the relevant connection. I
Joe
feel that
Monteleone, who's also a YouTube personality, he he was the one that really opened a lot of doors for me, like just unlocking things in my brain when I would like listen to him. And it's funny because at first I didn't, I could feel the truth in what he was saying, but I didn't understand intellectually what he was saying. And so I was just like, I'm just going to keep listening to this and keep listening to it. And eventually it'll click. And it did. And that's why I have a very strong connection to him. And he's actually teaching at my October retreat. So I'm excited for that.
that's amazing. And that's the
Yeah.
one thing I'm lacking is community right now. I don't
So many people are lacking community. So many people.
I'm like all the way out here, like in the sticks.
Looks beautiful.
It is. It's actually a lake location. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
All the way up there. Gorgeous location. There's a trail like right down the street from me. Just a beautiful place. And like the Blue Blaze Trail is like right around this area. You can access it. Um, but my point, I guess, would be, I guess I've slowly got to the point where my knowingness came from my neural network, and I'll explain that a little bit if you want.
Yeah.
Um, Community, I haven't had community because I actually did feel a lacking in my neural connections with them. So I didn't have much of a way to communicate or relate to people on on a truthful level, at least truthful level. And the way I access truth.
Your camera froze for a moment, so I don't know if you want to restate what you were just saying.
Oh, I'm trying. Okay. So, as I was saying, I'm trying to keep my phone charged.
Um,
So, my ability to access truth is through my neural network, is what I've realized. So that's who I am. That's where my spirit meets up with my body. That's perhaps why my body stays young, because I stay myself, because I'm accessing my neural connections, which is truthful to me, truthful connections. So when I'm not um able to connect to someone, it's because I'm not able to access their neural connections because they're not living or existing in that way. When I do find someone as resonant, it's because I do feel that they're in their neural network or in their neural connections and in a resonant way. And there are different aspects of a person that I feel they exist in that way. And I've been recently discovering what is relevant. So what's resonant is relevant is what I'm getting basically from what I feel. So I wasn't able to really make community um, because of that lacking of existentiality, so to speak, from people. I haven't personally had a resonant um, vibe where I could like access them in a truthful way. Again, there's certain people that I could, but I didn't really know them for long, only because it didn't feel resonant for me to communicate with them very long.
well, I hope you enjoy the breathwork tomorrow that I'm going to be hosting because you did sign up for it, and I think that even though it's not going to be like a very like official high magic ritual where I'm like calling the corners and stuff like that, it's definitely going to have like a magic feel to it. I will say that. So it might be like a good wading into the pool of ritual again for you.
Yeah, and I love that. And it's an aspect of me that, of course, that I've rejected because of my Judaism and because of constructs. It's not really like it was resonant for me to be doing the rituals and I was ignoring it.
Yeah. And when you do, it's funny because like magic is very interesting that way. When you um like kind of look away from it, it's like we're gonna come back. You might not like you, okay, you think you're real cute putting it on pause. Go ahead. Good luck. See how it works. Because
Exact,
I
exactly the messages.
yeah, I had a partner in 2020. Lovely year. I'm just kidding. Like I had a partner during that year, the big year of COVID, and he was very anti-magic and anti-witch. It freaked him out real hard. And so as a result, I was like, okay, I'll just not do it. Like, I guess that's what this is about. Like, I guess I just have to put it down for a little bit. And like previously in my history, I've had to put it down before for other people as well. Like, I was forced to be confirmed because I grew up Catholic, and so that was like part of the thing. And so I was told to put it down then and whatever. So this is the first time I had to put it down as an adult, and it was like, "Oh no, we're not going anywhere." You think I it's cute that you think we're going somewhere, but like we'll be back. You'll be back. And sure enough, absolutely, like as soon as I broke up with him, I like
Right.
I return full force. And I think like ultimately, if you're a person that practices magic or you're a witch or you're an energy healer of any kind, like you just participate with the world differently and you have to acknowledge that. Like there's really no opting out once you've like started this path. There's no real opting out.
I could not get myself drunk enough. I could not get myself high enough to ignore what I felt in my heart space, which is the center of my neural network, which is not, a coincidence.
It's the seat of
And
your soul. It's where it sits.
right. So I feel like the soul sort of resides and the mind and the heart, of course, is unified within the neural networks and communications. So I feel like I've been reaching those states lately where I've been ascending towards the truth more lately, which also begs the question, like, what for?
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, the planet in general, if you play in this sandbox, there's this very strong held belief that the planet is in a trajectory of ascension at the moment. And so like all of us have to raise our vibrations essentially to like continue to live here.
you know,
And there's
um,
astrologically, there's no time in history where what's happening in the sky right now, including like the smaller, like micro, what are they called? Like the planetoids and all of those things. Like we've never been in this position before, but there have been similar positions like during the French and American Revolutionary War when Pluto was once again in Aquarius. So like there's going to be like this whole year I'm so excited for. In January, admittedly, not so excited for it because I was very like overwhelmed by it. It was taking a lot of me, but now that I've like recalibrated my energies, I feel much better about it, and I feel really good about where we're going.
so that's good. And I feel sort of similar, actually, with in regards to where we're going. My mind makes up all kinds of stories, of course, about like brimstone and fire and Armageddon and people not listening and people being ignorant and people being typical Americans wanting their Big Mac and wanting to just insult anything that's creative. Um,
But that's why we have to have a voice now because like it's more important now than ever because you
right.
know
And reaching out, I feel is just so important. Even if your message is not perfect, I feel like it's so important to reach out on some kind of like YouTube or getting your message out there. Someone's going to want to hear what you're saying. Um,
my plan was to start doing card readings for YouTube. I've been playing with how I want to do that actually.
sure.
But that will be coming in a few weeks, probably.
I I do my own readings. I don't feel resonant to use cards per se,
Yeah.
but personally, I feel like I have this. How is it relevant? How is this useful? The message that I would be bringing out from my reading, or from not I wouldn't call it a reading, sort of like an intuitive communication session. where it's sort of like the truth comes out of the woodwork, so to speak. So I don't feel resonant to read cards, as I said, but I do feel resonant to help people from a place of knowing.
I mean, if you were to make videos of channeling, I'm sure that would go well. For me,
Yeah,
I like to use cards because they ground me. Like I have no earth placements in my chart. Zero. No earth placements.
I
So
have a earth placement.
yeah, so maybe that's why you don't feel the need to like ground into cards because you can just pull it. Whereas for me, I'm like
Sure.
so out in the air all the time and like so airy fairy, that when I look at cards, like I see a whole lot of stuff. And so that's it like grounds my energy to look at something.
That's great. Whatever works for someone, like whatever feels resonant for someone. And I'll feel that in someone as well. Even if they don't do what I do, I will feel what they're doing is resonant because I can feel it in my nervous system.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Um, and I guess that would be my point. But I'll share with you that ritual I was talking about before we got sidetracked, if you wanted to hear about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh, so there was this ritual I was doing in the woods. I found this wonderful altar, this stone that was in the middle of the woods, and I was burning leaves on it, and I was calling for um, fertile rains to bring life back to the land. And literally not even 15 minutes later, there was these really large, long raindrops that just came out of nowhere. Like burning these leaves on this stone, right? And then this literally this cloud, this big black cloud came out of nowhere with these huge raindrops, went over my head and then over my house, just over my house. Absolutely absurd. Um, it felt so right what I was doing. Like I was connected in a helpful way when like daily life for instance felt like it wasn't very resonant for me to just go live the status quo or do whatever I was doing just to exist. I felt to have these resonant connections. I felt to go out there. I felt to do these things.
I think as we move away from how society is structured currently, I think that the way that you and I both participate with the world will become a much more relative experience for more people. Like, I think that as we kind of like, as a society, as we all like wake up, if you will, or we all like start plugging into like the realness of this, what actually happens here, I think that, I think that that will be more commonplace for people. Whereas like some people hear that now and they're like, that's wild, or like I could never. Like I think that people will realize just like that type of thing does live in all of us. Like the ability to do that lives in all of us. You just have to be open to the experience and like connected to the energy.
I sort of like knew the elements as my family. It was like almost like a casual relationship with the divine, where I was able to just say, "Hi, Mother Sky," or Mother Earth, or Mother Rain, or you know, I didn't really know any other entities other than Mother or that type of relationship with the elements other than God himself, which I feel is, for me as a man, I feel God is male. For a woman, though, I actually know how to get in tune with what I would feel as a woman. And for me, if I was a woman, I feel God would be a woman.
I don't
So,
think God has gender, and the reason why I don't think God has gender is because gender exists in the world of duality. And
can I
when
finish
you yeah,
what
yeah,
I
yeah.
was saying?
I was just kind of going off of what you were saying. Like, I think that that's interesting that that perspective that you take that perspective with it because that's not, yeah.
I feel also what you're saying also sort of resonates in some way. I don't know. I don't think God ultimately has a gender, but I feel that he does express himself to the person because he is us, I feel, at our core. I feel he expresses himself in the way that he exists within you.
I think I understand what you're saying. Okay.
So for me, God was like, I'm you at your core, pay attention. And there was this symbol, and I don't remember what this symbol was. This was before I was born. But God showed me, I am you at your core. So pay attention is what he said. And he showed me that. He showed me the place where he and I were the same person, um, one being. Um, and I feel that God, I don't feel we involve him in a close enough way. Um, I feel we are him at our core. And he's the center of our nervous system. He's the center of the nervous system that we're connected to in the universe. If I felt like any message I would want to get out would be that. And I feel like encouragement is the key, where we're able to encourage each other in a way that makes our nervous system encouraged, so to speak, to exist in the way that it does. And that brings out our actual divinity. I don't feel like shunning or is very helpful at
You're
all.
you froze for a second. So I don't know if you want to restate that.
So I feel like it's very important to not discourage people because I feel that it discourages us from existing in our neural networks, from our neurological existence, and it discourages us from having that oneness with God that we need in order to exist as ourselves. Um, I
It's
feel that electricity is God. I feel the physical is the goddess, and I feel that, of course, as one, that's where God is home, and that's where the goddess is home. That's where we're home. That's heaven, literally, is the earth itself. And I feel heaven and hell are in the same place.
yeah, I think very much that. Well, if you were to study Kabbalah, which is Jewish mysticism, which is talked about a lot in the Golden Dawn, they talk about Malkuth being the kingdom, which is the 10th sphere of the Sephiroth, which is on this plane of existence essentially. It is this land. This land is the kingdom. And the I agree with the fact that I think that heaven and hell are just kind of like states of mind in this existence because I think that like when you leave physical form, that's not how it works anymore. But it's just my opinion. It's my belief structure.
I feel like our bones are always a part of us, no matter where we go, And I feel like this place is one with us no matter where we go. And I feel like we were destined to be one with this place as who we are, forever. And I feel like there's really no disconnect anyway between this place and anywhere else we would go. It's all one place, all one thing.
Yeah,
As you said,
it's all a resonant frequency.
right.
And I
And
think that like
all exists as one thing. It's not nothing separate or disconnected or discarded.
correct, but I think at certain frequencies, um physicality ceases at a certain frequency.
Hmm. You know what I feel? I felt this resonant, like if we actually become in the final oneness state or the final state where God becomes physical, I feel literally like the soul and the physical are equal, are happening equally at the same time. in resonance. So it's almost like I feel we are as much as we, and we exist that way anyway, like we exist as much spirit as we are physical, um, but not at the same time. I feel like we're sort of almost entrapped by the physical, especially with the removal, a way to say that. Let's recalibrate that. Um, I feel because we're so removed from our spirituality, I don't feel we exist as much as we do spiritually, as much as we do physically. I feel we exist physically more than we do spiritually. And I feel like if if we were able to only become resonant in our connections, only become relevant in our connections, I feel the two would become one, so to speak. Um,
Yeah. I mean that's kind of similar to something I expressed earlier, um, when I talked about like incarnating a little bit, and I forget what your response was. But I thought you didn't see it the same way as me, but you're kind of indicating that you might.
it is interesting how it might seemingly have different definitions, but if we actually talk about it, we'll find I think that we're probably all on the same page.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, I think whenever you participate in a non-Abrahamic capacity, I think that generally it's a lot more open. I have issues with the Abrahamic faiths in general, but that's my journey.
what you mean by Abrahamic religions, the ones that are like book thumpers and like you should just, have faith that that's how it exists when they're not actually feeling how it exists. They're not having an experience of how it exists. They're having a thought process of how it exists. And that's the difference between, I feel, what's resonant and what isn't resonant or relevant.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I don't want to cut this conversation shorter than it needs to be. However, I do have something at 3:30, so we may have to wind down shortly.
Circumvent, yes.
But we have like another 10 minutes if you want to continue to chat.
Of course, I'm here for it. So,
I just didn't want to like immediately like abruptly end. That's why I brought it up now.
well, I totally appreciate, this conversation, what we've been saying. I appreciate this connection and creativity that we're creating right now, which is wonderful and wonderful for my channel and my content. But I will also include in the description below this video, I'll include how people can get in touch with you, contact with you in the way that you would love to be contacted, and see what services you offer, um, and connect with you in the ways that you would like to be connected with
Yeah,
them.
that's great. My organization is called the House of H, and we work with queer people and our allies on creating safe spaces for people to like age with grace and ease. I like to say because queer people don't get the same playbook that straight people get when they come into this world,
Mhm.
and aging looks different for us, and we don't necessarily all have access to like children to help us age gracefully as we age. And so I think that it's really important for that to be done in community, and that's pretty much the the juice of what I do. And I do that in smaller scale through retreats, but in the next like 3 years, I fully plan on having like a center where there will be communal living, but also participation with retreats if the people that live there wish to like work on them or give lectures or teach yoga or whatever. But that's all in the works.
That's absolutely amazing things, and I'm so happy that you cultivate community. We're in such need of that these days. And I may have not been able to do that per se myself yet as much, but um, I felt resonant to sort of just get my message out there. And
Totally.
that's why I'm reaching out now, after all these years.
Well, I love to be here for part of that process, so I'm glad. And yeah. Oh, by the way, House of H is Haus. I forgot to say that. It's like fashion house.
Awesome. Yeah. I'm there for it.
Okay.
Um, um, yeah, so I greatly appreciate that. And if you're listening, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And I look forward to hearing from your comments. And we love you on this channel, of course, and we love each other, and we're totally a part of this whole neural encouraging network of communication and existence within nature, and that's
Yes.
my message. Anyway.
Yeah, same. We're here for the journey and we're here to make the best of it, all of us in it together. Even the people that like sometimes maybe put up a little bit of a fight first.
And we know what that feels like. Energy doesn't lie. So,
That's ain't that the truth. Um, I'm gonna stop recording now, but we'll stay on for like 5 more minutes.
sure, okay, great.